Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Nathan Yeung. Nathan is an experienced marketing strategist with over 10 plus years of expertise in advising B2B businesses. Throughout his career, Nathan has helped numerous companies build their marketing teams from scratch, delivering successful go-to-market deployments and launching new products into the market. Nathan's diverse background brings a unique perspective to the marketing world. Trained in marketing, he has also worked in finance and management consulting, providing him with a comprehensive understanding of business operations and strategy. Nathan's ability to think outside the box has helped his clients to stand out in their industries, and his expertise has been recognized by numerous organizations over the years. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this conversation with Nathan. Welcome, Nathan.
Welcome. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on today.
Awesome. Now, we always like to give our guests an opportunity to share a little bit about their journey in their own words. So could you tell our audience a little bit about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long journey. So I originally went to school for entrepreneurship with actually a specialty in marketing. And afterwards, I actually ended up going into finance. So it was a bit of a, massive change. And then kind of shortly management conditions and kind of really making sure that the acquisitions transitioned well, kind of synergies and managing sometimes moving the business model into completely different markets. And one of the things that I had fundamentally seen in almost every single one of my jobs and careers was how important marketing was. And also how I felt that I didn't feel like marketing was really getting as much attention as it really needed. And I often felt that marketing I felt like a lot of the people who had the money or had the authority to make decisions really kind of didn't appreciate marketing. And I think that came from a couple of different perspectives. One, I don't think they quite understood marketing. And two, I think in the sense of the pool of practitioners, I think the pool of the practitioners are quite small. And so I think there's a general underappreciation for marketing. And that's kind of one of the things that drove me to it. Obviously being trained, and even while doing all these jobs, I was always doing kind of marketing things on the side. So I've always kind of enjoyed marketing. And kind of after my management consulting stint, I started Find Your Audience and, really focusing on what I believe is what I call, sustainable and practical marketing, and the very opposite versus that of a typical creative shop.
Mm-hmm. All right. So could you share with our audience, based on your experience, you've been in this area for quite some time, and I do believe marketing is very much directly related to customer experience. One of my greatest pet peeves is, organizations invest so much in getting the name out there, the brand out there, the image, the product. And then when you actually have to interface with them, whether it be on the phone or through their app or through a website or face to face, what they've advertised in terms of what you're getting and what was in the marketing, there is a totally, different disconnect. There's no correlation. So could you share with our listeners kind of how you advise your clients to kind of close that gap and make it a more seamless and frictionless experience for the customer?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I always talk about customer experience because you're absolutely right. It's incredibly jarring for a lot of customers to go into a funnel, be sold on some particular benefits, then obviously purchase that product and really not have a great way to experience those benefits in a seamless way, therefore really making that experience quite negative. Or, as some say, you want things frictionless, this being having a lot of friction. I tell a lot of clients that when you sell something, the customer experience is directly correlated, obviously, with retention and kind of the attrition rate of your customers. And it's incredibly important for you to be as aligned as possible, but also as self-serving as possible to the customer in the sense of those benefits and making sure that they know how to experience those benefits, how they're going to get access to those benefits, and how they can essentially, get what they need to drive a successful outcome from that purchase, from whatever that expectation is. And a lot of clients, tend to overlook that, right? Because I think a lot of clients are very, very focused on just gaining that acquisition of a customer versus really making sure that they nurture that customer through their app.
Agreed. So it's all about the acquisition and not necessarily about the experience.
Experience is an afterthought. And I think you especially with newer companies, that's very much the case. I think with more mature companies, you'll see that they focus a little bit more on customer success teams, and those customer success teams and product managers have a actual focus on that customer onboarding process to make sure that experience is great.
Excellent, excellent. Now, let's say if you could give our listeners, maybe 3 things. We're already halfway through 2023. And so they're looking on, ensuring that they can continue to sustain the business that they already have, and they're looking to acquire new customers. What are some things, maybe 3 things as a top marketer that you would advise your customers in terms of ensuring that they're able to keep their existing clientele and, of course, attract new customers and still maintain a quality experience?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is this sounds so simple, but I find that a lot of clients don't even do this, is really, in HR, there are these pulse surveys, and these pulse surveys are really to get a pulse of your employees. I think very much when you have customers, there should be a pulse survey for your customers. Some companies obviously do this via annual NPS surveys, net promoter score surveys, for those that don't know what NPS means. But it really just important to have a kind of a quarterly checkpoint with your customer and saying, hey, how are you doing? I really just wanted to call you today. Is there anything that I can do differently? This needs to be very clear. You have to say differently, because you don't want to imply something negative or positive. You really actually just want to ask for their advice. And typically, if there's anything different, that means it's something that they probably want. So I think really leading into that conversation with, is there anything that we can do differently, is really, really important. And I think that's a great way just to maintain relationships with your current clients, but two, to constantly get a great level of feedback on your current business to ensure that you're always keeping up that level of service or level of quality that hopefully you desire to have. The second thing is you have to just respect that everyone is busy. That also means everyone's quite lazy. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that in kind of the most general human sense, that humans tend to have a lazy factor to them. And you have to really handhold them through any activity. So when you're doing these surveys, when you're doing these things, just know that it is not a priority for them, and that you have to be incredibly patient, and making sure that whether this is the survey you're asking them to do or it's the onboarding process, don't assume that they actually know what they're doing, and be mindful to actually build out anything to help them understand what they need to do in order to get that outcome again. And so if it's that survey, make sure that survey is incredibly easy to do. If it's a customer form, make sure that customer form has a Loom video talking about how to answer the questions. If it's an NPS score, again, also send them another Loom video just showing what an NPS score looks like, because they also maybe don't want to go into a huge form or survey and waste their time. So again, kind of have this humility in the sense that every one of your customers has a lot of things to do. They're naturally lazy. The best way you can get their attention is by making sure that you do everything you can to make sure that expected journey is visible and they know exactly what they're getting into.
Brilliant, brilliant. Those are really, really good points. Thanks for sharing, Nathan. Now, let's say our audience wanted to build out their own marketing team, right? They're looking to build their marketing team from scratch. What are, let's say, 3 or 4 qualities that you believe your team in marketing needs to possess in order to be successful?
That is an incredibly difficult question. And for anyone that's listening, I'm going to preface this that marketing is incredibly complex right now. And we're a firm that firmly believes that we do not prescribe solutions. And why this is really important to those 3 or 4 qualities that you're mentioning is because those 3 or 4 qualities really is dependent on your organization. And I know that's not a great answer, because I'm sure you guys want a simple solution. So I'll try to make it simple, but I'll still preface that it is really going to be dependent on your situation. Mm-hmm. So one of the number one things that I think is difficult for a lot of businesses is content generation. And so I feel like if you were to be forced into a decision where, you have to hire someone, or you're really looking to someone to come into your organization, find someone who actually has a lot of experience in content generation. And that could mean a lot of things. So content generation could be social. Content generation could be producing videos on TikTok or Reels on Instagram. Content generation could also mean the written form of content, such as search engine optimization and creating authority articles and authority blogs and things that really speak about your industry. I think that's one core skill set that no matter the company, you're going to get value from that. The other thing that I think is really important is to find someone that maybe has some experience on brand. So if you're a B2C company, you're really going to want someone who has a creative background with a bit of art direction, because when you're in B2C, creative plays a massive role in you standing out in the market. Now, I will then take that statement, saying that if you're in B2B, while I do think having a creative background is incredibly important, probably what's even more important than that in a B2B business is someone that's a product marketer. And so a product marketer is really going to be that person that's going to help translate your services, solutions, packages, products into real tangible materials that are going to be benefit laden and can be brought to the market. So they're the ones that are going to really create all the assets required for you to be successful in selling your product into that market. And they're really hyper focused at doing that. They're also hyper focused in getting customer feedback and making sure that that feedback loop is actively going into your marketing materials and addressing any of those pain points and friction points that your customers are having. So there's a long-winded answer. So I'll make it simple again. Content, if you just want to be general, find someone with great content experience. That's going to pay you some dividends. And if you're a little bit more of a complex business, I would recommend first prioritizing what you're doing, then kind of finding an individual who has those qualities.
Okay. So your answer kind of piqued my interest a little. And I'd like to dig a little bit further as it relates to content generation. So let's say I have somebody internally in the organization already who has some, it's shown a little bit of potential as it relates to marketing. They don't have a lot of experience in content generation, but I see potential for them to be able to be strong in that area. Are there certain things that someone can do to become a better content generator?
I think the best way for them to become the best content generator is really to focus on first what form of content, right? And I think the first question before you go down that route is you have to ask yourself, is that form of content generation the form that is going to be the most influential for your business? So for a lot of people, they jump on the bandwagon of like search engine optimization. And search engine optimization in particular businesses makes sense because the traffic numbers and the search numbers make sense. Mm-hmm. If you're in a hyper-focused niche type product or service, you may not actually get a lot of benefit from doing SEO. So you might be more interested in doing call it like videos or reels or a podcast, for example. And so really it's first, let's focus on what asset do we actually need to create content for, and make sure that's first aligned. And if you think that person has the capabilities to do that particular type of content and asset, then let's go ahead and figure out what that looks like. Now, for them to get better at that, it would be simply as doing research into what the market is looking for, right? The reality is that, I hate to say this because I think it's like an overplayed thing. You want to go viral, right? Like that's the ideal thing. If you have a great article that goes viral, that's fantastic. If you have a great reel that goes viral, that's fantastic. If you have a great video on YouTube that goes viral, that's fantastic. We're all looking for that virality. Mm-hmm. And so the game plan for that content person is really, okay, so I'm good at this type of content, this type of asset for this type of channel. Let's go find out what are people really interested in this space, and really just looking up those hashtags, looking at those influencers that are doing well and trying to identify trends in what they're doing and creating a small framework to create that content. There is no perfect formula for virality. There is, to a certain extent, if you want to do really outlandish thing, like, give out $1 million to people randomly on the street, that's easy, but no one has that kind of money all the time. So I think having that person just do that research in the specific channel and understanding their market, and then trying to copy that. And I know that sounds terrible, but they have to learn. So I would suggest just copying that content. And then more importantly, I think the number one thing is getting efficient at content generation. I think content generation in itself is easy. Being incredibly efficient is actually the hard part. So can that person learn to create 12 to 15 pieces of assets in an hour? And if they can, that's amazing. That's fantastic, right? That's incredibly valuable. You don't want this person, creating one piece of content a day. That's not going to be effective for any business. So, one, figure out, does whatever the content match your market? Two, have them research whether or not you can actually create content efficiently and effectively for that market. And then three, optimize the living crap out of that operational process so that that person can produce as much content as possible.
All right. Now, those are some awesome suggestions. Thank you so much, Nathan. Now, Nathan, could you share with our audience what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
So everyone's going to hate this, but I'm going to say ChatGPT. So I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to stop there because everyone's going to roll their eyes and say, "Go great, someone else talking." So ChatGPT, obviously, please use it. Now I'll actually provide a much better source. I have Sunday product hunt days. And people go, well, what does that mean? It means every Sunday I go to www.producthunt.com and I look at the latest listings. And the reason I look at those latest listings is because these are all bootstrap entrepreneurs creating mini SaaS products, solving mini problems. And it's a great way, one, for you to find new SaaS products that could obviously benefit your business. But two, it's also kind of an indication of the pain points in the market, right? Generally speaking, these entrepreneurs who are bootstrapped, who are producing these things, are actually actually solving a pain point. It's there's another question of whether or not that pain point is large enough for it to be a lucrative business. But regardless, it's a pain point. So going on Product Hunt every Sunday, reviewing the latest releases for the week, is kind of a great way for you to get a feel of the market. But two, it's also a great way for you to find new SaaS tools that no one knows about that you can use to benefit your organization.
Oh, okay. That's I've never heard of that strategy before, and I'm sure our listeners will be impacted in a positive way from that strategy because I'm definitely going to try it this Sunday for sure.
Yeah, it's lovely. You learn, not only is it a bit of like a news center too, because a lot of these bootstrap entrepreneurs are using the latest APIs, the latest generative AI things, the latest language models. And so you'll end up learning just from reading the descriptions what they're doing. That'll also keep you up to date with kind of the latest and greatest things too.
Brilliant. Okay, Nathan, can you also share with us maybe one or two books that you've read? It could be a book that you read very recently or one you read a very long time ago, but it has had a very big impact on you.
I think one of my favorite books by far has been Scaling Up. Scaling Up is really a beautiful book on how to scale your business. And I think for any of those listeners right now that are thinking about scaling up your business, I recommend it. Absolutely, hands down. If you're looking to build your business, look and read at Scaling Up. The book fundamentally just changed how much I really thought about structure. And as much as us entrepreneurs love the idea of having kind of a very flat and horizontal organization, the reality is that scale creates problems. And when you have scale, you have to have structure. And if you don't have structure, you really can't scale particular parts of your function because the reality is that there's just a certain point where you actually really need to have someone hyper-focused doing only a portion of that operational process. So that book really aligned my thinking on what is required to build and sustain a scalable business. And two, it just gave me a lot of frameworks to help build my own organization. We're at 25 employees. We grew from 14 employees in just less than 6 to 7 months. And, I think if you think that having more employees is going to be possible in a horizontal manner, I can say absolutely good on you. But you're going to have a lot of leaks. So highly recommend that book. I've read it multiple times. I've shared it with my business friends. And so I would recommend taking a look. And lucky enough, you have a digital, you have Audible, you have the paper book, you can get whatever version of you want. It's got great exercises and it's really going to broaden your perspective on thinking big.
Lovely. All right. So we will have the link to that book in the show notes of this episode. Can you also share with our listeners what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
So what I am really, really excited about right now is I'm a little bit of a coder in the back end, and I love creating small little apps for myself. For those listeners, it has never been easier for you to create small tools for yourself. And if you haven't learned to code at all, that's okay. It's not that difficult. It is certainly a time investment, but I would really recommend taking a look at some Python courses and utilizing ChatGPT or any other generative AI tool to help you generate code, because it's never been easier for you to automate random things that are kind of important to you. For example, I have a little script that kind of does product research for me. And so what I do is, if I'm looking to buy maybe the latest camera or the latest ring light or the latest headphones or earbuds, I simply have ChatGPT just kind of go out into the internet and produce me a summary. So think about it as on the call Cole's notes for literally everything you want in life. You want to know the best baby bottle? It'll do the research for you. You want to know the best soda stream? It'll do the research for you. And you can really do this for any part of your life. And you can do it now in a fraction of the time. So I think that's the one really fun thing, is actually creating these mini apps for myself and getting a bit more proficient at that, because it really is a time-saving activity.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, Nathan, our listeners would have tapped into this episode and they're quite intrigued with your organization, find your audience. They'd like to connect with you. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.findyouraudience.online. I know that's long, but if you read it out, it says find your audience online. That's the whole point. And then also on Instagram, I do have my personal channel where I produce business content, which is fya.marketingbytes. That's with a Y. And then lastly, you can find me just on LinkedIn as Nathan Yeung, last name spelled Yeung. Please connect with me. Let me know that you're a listener from the podcast. Happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we'll have all of the links to the different platforms that Nathan would have mentioned just now in our show notes. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, Nathan, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? If for any reason you got derailed or you got off track, and this quote kind of just helps to get you back on track.
Oh my, I have so many quotes. Am I allowed to give more than one?
Sure, of course.
I think one of the most recent ones, and I learned this from one of my clients who had faced an unfortunate event. He's a very, very smart man. He mentioned that his wife was going through something quite ill, and he had no control over it, and he was very upset, and he dealt with that for many years. And one of the things that I think is really important is you can't control outcome, you can only control process. So this idea of going into conversations with this negative feeling, this negative energies, is really not required. You can only control what you're doing towards that conversation. You can't actually control the outcome of that conversation. You'd like to think you can, but you can't. And so letting go of that control, which is honestly a very much like an ego thing. It's almost, someone could say ego death, is just realizing you can't control. Can't control everything in the world. We can't control, and letting go of control is definitely one thing that I'm certainly still learning. But it's something that I have to kind of really lean into in tough times in the business.
Mm-hmm.
The second one that I have also from the same dinner that I heard was the grass is greener only where you water it.
Mm.
And so there's a long folk tale behind that, and you guys can probably find that online. But it's very much on the standpoint that we always like to think the grass is greener, but the reality is the grass is only greener where you water it. So the grass is greener, and the folktale behind that has two meanings. One is obviously sometimes you forget to see the grass that you have watered, but two, I think in the more nuanced New Age perspective is it is only going to be greener if you focus on it. So I think both of those things are really important, and I think that's important just for your day-to-day activities, but also for your business.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing those two quotes, Nathan. We'll definitely have those in the show notes of this episode. So we just want to say thank you so much, Nathan, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to hop on this podcast with us and have this awesome conversation about marketing and how it's connected to customer experience and why it's important for us to ensure that we're looking at the entire process, the journey of the experience, not just, selling or marketing the product or service, but also ensuring that our customers have a seamless experience, a frictionless experience. And of course, the qualities that you shared with us as it relates to ensuring that we have the right people on our marketing team, depending on our organization type. So the conversation was great. The information was great and, totally insightful. I know I gained a lot from it, and I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from it when it is released. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just want to remind our listeners that you can follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX, and feel free to hop on Facebook and follow our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience webinar will be hosted on Wednesday, July 26, 2023 at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This webinar will be provided with a complimentary copy of the ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience book. Who should attend? Customer service representatives, customer care officers, customer service associates, support agents, business development officers, customer care representatives, cashiers, receptionists, sales and service representatives, customer retention agents, client support specialists, customer engagement officers, client care coordinators, reservation specialists, reservations agents, collections officers, client relationship officers, administrators, account executives. If you deal with customers daily and you are seeking reinforcement of the skills needed to offer an exceptional experience, then this webinar is for you. This webinar will cover managing customer expectations. What are the 4 things customer expectations are based on? Customer service skills. What are the skills and competencies required to serve others? Handling irate and difficult customers. How to handle difficult and irate customers in a busy work environment. Your attitude, communication, finding solutions, and rapid response. Tools that you will need to help you exceed your customers' expectations. This webinar will help you ignite your customer service skills, navigate your emotions, and better understand how to serve customers during a time when the customer is even more demanding than before. Your business will see the exponential rewards when your team members are continually creating fantastic and memorable experiences for your customers. Please visit the register here on our podcast show notes page, and please feel free to hop on over to Instagram. You can visit our business page, Customer Service Global, that's CUSTOMERGLOBA, or you can visit Yannick W.A. Grant, that's YANIQUEWEWAGRANT. Both Instagram handles will have the link for you to register for this amazing webinar. We look forward to seeing you there. Please come and bring all your friends and colleagues.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.